This is one of those questions that pops up in my inbox almost every week. So if you're wondering how to become a hedge fund manager and work in the alternative investment industry, this is the video for you. But before we get to the how, you should really make sure this is the career you want to pursue. This might seem obvious, but it's still worth pointing out because a lot of people have this expectation of what it's like to be a hedge fund manager because of a movie they've watched or something they have read. Unfortunately, this expectation almost never lines up with the reality of what it's really like. But hey, that's a whole nother story for another time. So to keep things simple, let's just assume you're watching this for all the right reasons and dive right in. There are basically 3 paths that you can take to become a hedge fund manager. At least in theory. Once you take a closer look though, you'll realize that not all paths will be available to everyone. In fact, your background and personal circumstances will be a deciding factor in narrowing down the most viable paths for you. Now, that can be good news or it can be bad news. It really depends. Which brings us to your actual 3 options and path number 1. The most simple and straightforward out of all 3. You start by raising money from investors and launch your own fund. This is obviously the quickest way to become a hedge fund manager. You basically go from point A to point B in one simple step, which is also why most people think this is the easiest option. Well, it's not. Far from it. There are a lot of challenges with this approach, which I've already discussed in previous videos. But for many, it is still the most viable path forward, despite all the difficulties it entails. Especially if you're in a position to raise sufficient capital and knock it out of the park. Now, just so we are on the same page and there is no confusion, let me be very clear that this is the most difficult path you can choose. The slightly easier and much more conventional path is to join a hedge fund after college and then work your way up to the position of portfolio manager. There are a lot of important benefits with this strategy. Benefits that were not really available back when I started my career in the late 90s. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the industry is a lot more institutionalized today. Back then, for most aspiring PMs, the path to a hedge fund started on the sell side by joining an investment bank and then, after a few years, making the switch to the buy side. Today, it's a very different industry. And the path to a hedge fund is a lot less rigid in terms of your background and your experience. Which brings us to path number 3. Be successful in another profession and build your reputation. This might seem counterintuitive at first, but the industry continues to change. And there's a growing need for specific know-how to manage all these new niche investment strategies, which is a trend that is only going to grow and accelerate. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. There are probably already more than a few funds that specialize in it. Which means you want to get to a point in your career where you can add value to their process. This is also why it's so important for you to focus on building your reputation. Because it increases your chances to get on their radar. In which case, you don't even have to go look for them. They will find you. I hope this answers your question on how to become a hedge fund manager. Obviously, this is a highly condensed answer to a much more complex topic, but the goal is to give you some direction so you can pick your preferred path. And the rest is lots of hard work and a bit of smarts. So, which of these 3 options is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. Would be interesting to hear your views on this. Now then, and then again always, keep rocking the boat.